Okay, it's 12 o'clock and I'm going to start this short webinar to discuss preparation that you can take prior to the Prince2 Practitioner exam. So practitioner preparation, I like to show the slide just to put everything in context. When we're talking about project management, we're actually talking about the delivery mechanism typically for some strategic objectives, and those are usually defined by looking at the marketplace, where the opportunities and threats in the marketplace are, but also the individual strengths and weaknesses of the company as well. So you can see from this that the strategies flow down into programs quite often, but they can also directly go through to projects, and the spot that Prince2 is obviously sitting in is in that project space. So today we'll talk about Prince2 Practitioner. If you've got this far in your journey with Prince2, you'll be familiar with this text. That is the main guidance from Axelos, and the 2009 is the edition that we use today. Okay, to get to the practitioner exam, there's two different ways. The most common way is that you've set Prince2 foundation and you have passed the foundation at a 50% or above pass mark. There's also a second way which is recently introduced, and it's acknowledgement of prior learning through other courses. So if you have a PMP or a CAPM or some other qualifications, that is seen as evidence that you have foundation knowledge of project management, and hence you don't have to do the Prince2 foundation. A slight word of warning, my experience has been that there is significant differences in the way that people are delivering, and especially naming conventions between PMP or PMBOK and Prince2, and there is a little bit of retraining in terms of your understanding of how projects actually work. Typical things are that we've got work breakdown structures in PMBOK, and in Prince we talk about product breakdown structures. So just slightly different ways. Project management plans in PMBOK and project initiation documents in Prince2. So although you don't need to sit the foundation exam, I would suggest that you are familiar, at least at a foundation level, with Prince2 before you attempt a practitioner exam. Now, the practitioner exam is actually not a simple exam, hence the reason for this webinar, and it's a 2.5-hour exam. There are 8 questions. Each question has 10 sub-questions worth 1 mark. So you need to get 44 marks or above to pass. So it's a 55% pass mark. It is open book, and what that means is you can take in the Prince2 guidance that we saw before, but nothing else. So you're allowed that book in to the exam room, but nothing else. Okay, just a quick recap on Prince2. You have different layers of management that are actually operating within Prince2, and there is a process that goes through pre-project initiation, stage delivery, and then final stage. And the actual processes used for those are called startup, directing a project as overall governance and approvals from the project board, initiating project. That's a process called stage boundaries to manage the stages between the boundaries between one stage and another. Controlling a stage is all about actually making sure that things are on track, so monitoring and reporting, and making sure that you're getting the progress as you expect. And managing product delivery is actually where the products or the deliverables are developed and assured through the team manager. And this is an iterative process. It's very good practice to have multiple stages, potentially 3-month stages or less, where you're actually delivering components of the project. Once this has been run a few times, you eventually go to the final stage, and that is a particular process called closing a project, and there's particular things that you do in there. But this should be familiar to you, having done the foundation. Okay, just a quick recap of what a project is. It's the way that change is introduced. It's a temporary organization in that you don't have repeatable projects. They need a defined start and end point. It's cross-functional. It involves a number of different teams working together. It is unique, and it is more risky than business as usual activities, hence the requirement for more structure. Within Prince, we talk about principles, which are the good practices that have been built up over time. So learning from experience, managed by stages, focus on products, define roles and responsibilities, tailoring the environment, managed by exceptions, and continued business justification through a business case. And the themes, so progress, business case, plans, risk, change, organization, and quality. It is expected that you know these and can apply these across the different processes. That's what the practitioner exam is all about. It's about understanding the interflow between principles, themes, and processes to deliver a project. So the 7 principles we've just seen before, those are them again. And the themes are here. So there's a bit more detail. Obviously, it's showing you what it's actually covering and the chapters that are actually in the book that will cover these different themes. I'm not going to go into these. It's actually really important that you read the manual, and I would suggest thoroughly read it. You might want to take it at a subject at a time, but it is important that you go through the manual for a practitioner exam. So for example, in business case, you need to understand what happens to the business case as the project progresses. So here we can see that there's an outline business case pre-project, then there's a detailed business case, and throughout the project it actually gets maintained and updated. And finally, when the project closes, the final business case is produced to see if the end result was what was expected. So the key thing in Prince is the 3 different roles so your main roles are the business role, where the executive is the sponsor. It's called the executive. Senior user represents people that will use the products, and the senior supplier represents the people that will actually supply and develop the products that are going to be used by the users. Okay. Prince2 assumes that there's a customer who will specify the desired result and pay for the project, and a supplier who will provide the resources and skills to deliver that result. So a bit more in chapter 5 in the manual. Now this is a scary diagram. This shows all of the processes and the documents and how they're updated. So people on my course will receive this. It's a very scary thing, and it's especially at this level of detail, but you start to see how it all works and you start to get into the rhythm of how it updates. If we zoom in to a particular part of it, we can see this is actually initiating a project, and you can see that there are multiple processes within there. So prepare a risk management strategy, prepare configuration management strategy, and such like. And you can see that prepare risk management strategy, the actual process has been initiated through the authority to initiate that has come from the directing a project process, and the two main inputs to it are the project brief and the daily and lessons logs. Output are your risk management strategy and your risk register. So coming from above, if we go back here, these are all the processes here for directing a project. So once you've gone through this as startup, you go through, they then authorize it. This is a project board and the exec taking the lead on that. The authority to initiate has been granted. You're then going to prepare risk management strategy as a process, and the inputs are the project brief and the daily and lessons log, and you output risk management strategy, risk register. Now the thing about this is those processes are all defined within your manual. So you'll see as you go through the manual, so this actual diagram is a collection of all those processes. Okay, so the textbook's broken into, yeah, I can't stress how important it is to get familiar with this textbook. It's broken down into the principles chapter 2, themes chapters 3 to 10, processes 11 to 18, and then tailoring chapter 9. So you're expected to be able to bring these four aspects together in the practitioner exam. So very different from foundation. I would recommend that you actually tab your book so that you show in tabbing, show the relevant areas that you need to focus on to help you find them quickly during the exam. In the we'll go through. We'll have a look at a example exam, and we'll see the sort of questions that are being asked. But you'll see it's quite different. Okay, here's the syllabus. You should have access to the syllabus. It's really important that it's a very good guidance document. You can see here it's talking about the syllabus areas. So again, it's talking about the principles, the themes, and the processes. So these are the areas that are covered by the exam. And if you look in detail, you'll see this is looking at the overview, part of the overview, and it shows here what's covered in foundation and what's covered in practitioner. You are expected to know foundation, but you won't receive questions at the foundation level in practitioner. So you won't be asked what are the benefits of using Prince2. You will be asked things like the difference between embedding and tailoring Prince2. And you can see here that there is practitioner's ticks, and there's also a reference to the manual, so where you'll actually find that information. So this goes all the way through the document, and I'll bring that out briefly. So this is the Prince2 syllabus. You should have a copy of this. There are copies on Yammer if you don't have a copy. And if you have any problems accessing, let me know. So this is a document. You can see his introduction, and then the important things, obviously the areas that it's covering. The important things are then here, and for each of the areas the syllabus is covering, it's showing you the reference points. So the recommended composition of a business case and which processes it is developed. We saw that before. That's definitely something that you're expected to know at a practitioner level. So have a look at that, go all the way through. You can see exactly what areas you're being examined on. So if we now look at the type of questions, there is another document that you need to get familiar with, which is called the Candidate Guidance Document. This tells you the structure and type of questions that you will receive. So let's have a look at that. Candidate Guidance, here we go. It tells you the structure of the paper. It tells you that you have 3 booklets. It tells you again here 55% pass mark. The themes that it's looking at, the types of questions. So classic, these are the types of question practitioner, classic multiple choice. So choose one from a list of possible options. Multi-response. So 2 correct options from a list of 5. So verification audit, which 2 areas would be reviewed when doing a configuration audit, and you select 2 of these. Now, you obviously have the manual, and you could start looking at the manual and saying, okay, what areas are important to me? But I wouldn't recommend spending all your time in the manual. You can lose a lot of time there. So you have to at least know the correct answers for that. So matching, link the items. So you have 2 columns, and column A is a statement, and column B is where that should be recorded. Now we'll talk a bit about appendices, but Appendix A has all the product descriptions, so you can, if you weren't sure of these, again, you can have a quick look in Appendix A and look it up, but you should have a good idea before you actually sit the exam as to where these areas would be covered. Sequencing. Lists of decisions are made within a project. For each decision in column 1, decide whether or not it's made in starting a project process and indicate in which order the decision should occur. So are these actually part of the processes, and in what order? So you actually have to rank it in the right order. Okay, so is it first, second, third, or fourth? Assertion and reason. Now these ones are probably the most difficult. And the reason they're most difficult is because you have this true. So your assertion and reason can both be true, but they might not be, the reason might not justify the assertion. So there's a trick with this, is that you don't look at the statements. When you're answering these questions, you go down the first column, and decide is it true or false. You then go down the second column and you decide if it's true or false. And where you have ones that are true, you then look at them and say, okay, does that statement match with this one? So does it explain the assertion, or does it not explain it? So you have to be careful with these. These trip you up. So there's a bit about time management and editorial notes. So again, have a look through this and make sure it all makes sense to you. Again, it's one of those that you fill in with pencil, but there may be multiple cells that you have to color in for each example. The last area that we'll look at is the exam itself. Okay, so this is a practitioner exam. It's just showing a bit odd in Adobe, but don't worry about that. So FX03 is the exam number, 2.5 hour exam. Typically, this is what you'll see in the exam paper. You have a scenario. So this is a restructuring project, and it's basically, you can see that the following options were considered, and it takes you through the scenario. It then gives you some information on roles. So question 2 is going to be at the organization theme. So it has some roles, and there's more information about question 3 in terms of product, the quality theme, and so on. So you need to be familiar with the actual scenario when you're reading the exam, and then where there's particular areas, you need to check that. So syllabus areas, you can see here, there shouldn't be any reason. You can do this any way you want. There's no reason to actually do it in this order, but just be careful that you don't lose a place and miss a question. So starting up is a logical place to start. Organization is a logical after that, but perhaps some of these you might want to tackle in a different way. The information from question 3 doesn't flow onto question 4. It's all based on the scenario. So you can see how this is working and starting up. Column 1 contains records recorded in daily log. Each entry in column 1 select activity in column 2. So 2 outsourcing companies have proved to be unreliable on other projects and should be included. Where would that actually, what does that actually match with? So this is clearly a matching question. Likewise, you're going here, decide whether the action taken to start a project represent the appropriate application of Prince2 for this project. So the question, was it an appropriate application? So no, because 2 no's, 2 yeses. Again, you have to choose. It's a classic multiple choice question. So as you go into it, you'll see that the different types of questions are being asked. They do take a bit of thinking. Here's your assertion and reason ones. So here you would basically, you can mark on the paper, just mark if it's true or false in these 4 columns, and then go on to these ones, true or false, and then look for the 2 trues and decide whether they match each other. All right, so I'll leave you, again, you'll find these on Yammer, or if you don't have them, let me know and I'll send them through to you. Now, the beauty of these papers are always that it gives you the answers at the end. So these are a great way to actually check your understanding. Let's see if I can get to the end here. So here it tells you the actual right answers, and you'll find it also has the rationale. So it tells you why it's correct, why B is correct, and why, in this example, why these ones are incorrect. So this is where your learning comes in. You've got to try the exams, and then you've got to test yourself. And if you're not getting it right, you can look up in the manual and then particular reference. It's with most courses these days you do get slides, but most courses make reference to the manual because that's what you'll be using in the exam, and that's your main guide for it. So at that point, I have nothing more to discuss other than to wish you good luck. If you're training with me, then we'll go through this in a bit more detail, but I wanted to give you a heads up to what to expect in the practitioner exam. So thanks for your participation today, and good luck with your study. And if there's any questions, drop me an email. Thanks very much.